Our most natural state is a state of clarity and peace of mind.
Hmm.
So everything else is a deviation from that. So if I'm deviating from that by overthinking, let's say, or unnecessary worrying or something like that, it's a deviation from my healthy state. First of all, I'm going to feel that. I'll know, right? I'm not going to be at ease within myself. But if I try and do something to bring myself back, I'm going to be using thought, right? And what I'm experiencing is thought. So it's like Sydney Banks called it. He said it's like trying to get dried off by going back in the shower. Well, we have a superpower which most people don't recognize that they have, which is we can ignore our own thinking when it's not serving us.
I love that. That's so empowering.
It's so obvious that we overlook it, but there's actually thinking that we are ignoring all the time. We don't realize that it's a transferable skill. We can ignore any thinking that's not serving us. And when we stop giving it any attention, it falls away naturally by itself.
And that's the huge part, giving it attention.
That's the only thing that keeps it alive in our experience. Thought doesn't have any power to sustain itself. It's only the attention that we give to it that keeps it
And
alive.
it's literally attention. So
Mhm.
I do try to teach intuition when I say where your attention goes is where the energy flows.
Right. It's
You
also
know,
what you will experience more of.
right,
Whatever we give our attention to is what we'll experience more of
right.
internally.
And
And
even if it's something like we're giving attention to the Middle East, and
Mhm.
and oh, there shouldn't be chaos. There should be peace in the Middle East. There shouldn't be.
Yeah,
We're literally putting energy into that whole system.
yeah, yeah. And what you're giving attention to is your own upsetting thoughts and feelings about the Middle East.
Right.
Right? We don't experience the Middle East directly. We experience our thoughts and feelings about it. And if your thoughts and feelings about it are judgmental and negative and whatever they are, then the more you think about it in that way, the more you get to experience that. That's just the
Hmm.
way it works. It's a neutral system. The system doesn't care what we give our attention to.
So are you constantly just like not gonna listen to that, not gonna listen to that, not gonna listen to that?
Well, yeah, if something shows up in my which it will, of course, because
Mhm.
thought is kind of random. It just shows up. It's often uninvited, But what I've learned to notice is the feeling that comes with it is the guide to me as to whether it's worth paying attention to or not.
It reminds me of like the samurai or the Catholic saint where the guy's coming up with an axe behind them and they're just like, I'm gonna be Zen, And because it feels like that's what the world is like right now. It's just like there's just so much constant chaos and noise.
Yeah.
And to be able to get to that place of that mindset that you're describing feels so far away for most people.
It really isn't though. It's not because it's our most natural state. And it's the thing is it's not a constant. My experience fluctuates like everybody else's because that's just the nature of thought. It's always changing, it's always fluctuating.
It's
So that's
It's so
normal, but
funny because, yeah, I feel like your average homeopath, they'd be like, it's your natural state because you're a kingfisher. Because you are this, and there's this constant need to apply a label onto something.
yeah, to me that's missing the point. It's built into the human condition. It doesn't matter what remedy you might happen to need. It's deeper, it exists at a level that to me is prior to anything that you could name like that. It's something. It's where we're all the same. It's that
Hmm.
place where we're all the same
Yeah.
before we can identify a form or a label.
Mhm. What I love about homeopathy is that peeling away and that peeling away and that peeling away, which is akin to a lot of spiritual practices,
Yeah,
of self recognition. Who am I? What am
yeah,
I?
very much so. And I think again that to me is a key part of any homeopathic training. If the student hasn't been transformed by the training experience, then to me it wasn't a successful training.
Right.
You might have a head full of knowledge, but if you haven't been transformed on the inside, well, you haven't become a homeopath yet, in my estimation.
Yeah,
The becoming part is it's an internal process which happens for each of us in its own way. But to me, that is the essential ingredient. That's what I call the inner game of homeopathy. Um, because if that hasn't happened, then you're going into practice with a lot of your pre-existing misunderstandings, right? Because we all grow up with misunderstandings about health and disease and healing and so on. The homeopathic training helps to correct some of those misunderstandings, and it helps us to see a bit closer to what's true about healing.
right,
Um, so if that hasn't happened, it's going to really inhibit and limit your effectiveness as a practitioner.
right. And then the more advanced you get as a homeopath, the more you even start to break down what it means to be a homeopath.
Well, yeah, I think so, and also the less those kind of categories of what kind of homeopath you are, all of that just becomes kind of an irrelevance at a certain point. You just do your own thing basically in your own sweet way, and you don't worry about what anybody else is doing or what the board of homeopaths thinks you should be doing. To me, all of that just became background noise. It's like I don't really care. I'm just going to do my own thing.
Yeah. What would you say about all of I mean, for people, our stuff comes up, whether it's, I mean, are you a believer in like that we have past lives or, just these karmic patterns that kind of continually arise to kind of disrupt that peace of mind and such?
I wouldn't necessarily put it like that. To me, past lives only makes sense if you think in terms of linear time. And my understanding now is that linear time and space don't really exist.
Okay.
That they are a function of the apparatus through which we're perceiving creates the illusion of time and space. So I don't think the idea of past life, future life is really how it is. I think I would treat it as a metaphor, let's say. Now, that's not to say that it does look to me that each of us comes in, we don't all come in as a blank slate. We come in with tendencies and which we recognize in homeopathy, the whole miasm aspect of homeopathy to me definitely has some truth in it. And we also come in with potentialities, which that's our growth potential in this lifetime. And that each individual, it's going to be a unique configuration. So that to me is what the life game is all about. It's bringing forth the potentialities that otherwise would be dormant, um, in the best way that we can.
Yeah, living our highest potential.
Yeah, which Hahnemann pointed to as well, to his credit.
Mhm.
He said that's the whole point of helping people to get their health is so that they can then live, the highest ideal is so they can then live to their truest potential.
Mhm.
And, he was a living example of that. And it's beautiful that he was pointing in that direction, so long ago. He already had that realization. It's not just about removing symptoms. When you look at it from that perspective, we're helping people to come back into alignment with their own true nature.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah. If any of you guys have questions as well, I'm just feeling the zen of the moment of the true nature. It's been interesting because at some point it feels like we are asked to almost to develop ourselves as homeopaths in some form of spiritual practice.
Yeah,
You
I'd
know,
say so. I mean, the deeper you go into your work, then I think any work becomes a spiritual practice if you go deeply enough into it.
yeah, and homeopathy as a practice can be such a beautiful spiritual practice because it seems that your clients reflect something about you. You're in this learning journey, you're in this kind of mirroring process, learning together. And unless that's not happening, you're not growing as a homeopath and you burn out.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I realized for myself when I was working like a GP style, just prescribing on clinical conditions. I realized, well, it's kind of okay to get started, but it wasn't deeply fulfilling for me in the
Mm-hmm.
way that I knew my work could be. So I had to move beyond that. But
Yeah.
I'd love to hear from anyone else. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask me anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you can tell me if anything I'm saying is making sense or not making sense. It'd be great to get any feedback from you.
I'd be curious to like, you know, the intuition which cannot be taught. It's the it when you speak to the words intuition or insight, like you mentioned that insight is are those moments that you want people to have in order to evolve or heal. Is that similar to intuition for you?
Yeah, for sure. I think we can almost use the words interchangeably. Um, Insight to me is that moment of realization when a person realizes something that they literally hadn't realized before. And the effect of it is that it shifts their level of consciousness immediately. Um, so when it takes the form of intuition, again, that can have different forms for different people. So for me, very much it's very much in the feeling. I just get a felt sense. I don't tend to have visual imagery come to me. I know some people that do. Um, I know some people that literally get told what to do in their dreams, and it's like that clear. That's not the case for me. So I think that can take different forms. We can also call it instinct sometimes. If someone's in an emergency situation and they just know what to do without knowing how they know, and it saves their life, you might just call that instinct. But to me, it's all the same thing. It's all just different ways of describing the same thing. We're tapping into a deeper intelligence, which is not based on our own personal learning,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're not going into our own memory bank of what we've done before, which we're drawing on what Sydney Banksy just called it universal mind. So it's like a deeper field of intelligence, which we're all part of. We're never separate from that. We're just opening ourselves to be guided by it in a given moment. And sometimes even when we don't open ourselves, it gives us the nudge, right?
Are you finding when you open up to that there's a difference between that and like the clair senses?
The what senses? Sorry.
Like the clairvoyant senses, the clairvoyance, clairaudience,